In this video, we're going to see a former Trump advisor completely lose her cool over a question so simple it should have been an easy win. But instead of a clear answer, we get the classic dodge. The hesitation, the awkward pivots, the rush to unrelated talking points. It's one of those moments where the mask slips, and you can see exactly why they avoid real scrutiny. Let's watch it play out in full, then I'll break down why it matters.
It's funny that you think that he's taking a dig. Do you not think that when an 82-year-old man is arrested for posting something on Facebook, that is not a form of censorship?
Well, it depends what he posts, doesn't it? Depends if it's legal.
Well,
what did that 82-year-old man post?
Well, let's back up a minute here. If we are starting to scrutinize everything that someone says, if we're arresting them because it is hate speech.
What is that? You mentioned a specific case there. What is it this 82-year-old was arrested for?
Honestly, I can't remember, but what I do remember...
You're telling me that it's outrageous that an 82-year-old man was...
Back up a minute.
No, sorry, this is important because you've just said this is an example of free speech under threat in the UK, but you can't tell me what he was arrested for.
I don't remember the
So why are you bringing it up then?
I brought it up as an example that if we are scrutinizing what an 82-year-old man posts on Facebook...
But you can't assess that without knowing what he said, can you?
Well, you know what? Let's just say I brought up a wrong example because I don't have the context
Could it possibly
right
be
now.
because it's all a load of nonsense and free speech isn't under threat in the UK at all, which I think you've just demonstrated respectfully?
You know what? I've been there I've lived in the UK for 24 years. And yes, I do believe that censorship, it started with political correctness.
Right.
And as political correctness moved from accusing people of microaggressions and then people getting triggered over what somebody said, it has been a form of putting a speech straitjacket on people.
So what can't you say in the UK right now without being arrested that you think people should have the right to say?
You know what? That's a very good question.
It is. Thank you.
It is. I can't answer that question, and I can't give you an example exactly. But see, what I find interesting.
Sorry, Jane. You've given me an example of free speech being under threat. You can't tell me what the person said.
Well,
I've asked you for one single thing that you can't say in the UK without fear of being arrested, and you can't think of anything. It's because Britain still is a country, compared to the United States, by the way, where free speech absolutely exists and always will.
Well, we both see it differently then.
But you can't give me any single point of evidence whatsoever to back up your idea.
Why don't you give me an example of how free speech still exists and censorship is not there?
Because you don't get arrested by the police for saying anything that isn't incitement or hate speech in this country. People are free to express their opinions. People are free to give their views. We do not have a police state in this country, unlike, I might say, the way that the United States is going under Donald Trump.
Well, you know, that's interesting because it's not going that way with Donald Trump. It was going that way, and it's now reversing itself.
Right. So banning journalists from the White House because you don't like what they've written, demanding the impeachment of judges because you don't like what they've ruled, sacking government officials because they've dared to criticise you at any point in recent years, defunding universities because they're not doing what you do, threatening law firms if they don't toe the party line, defunding media organisations that you think are against you, arresting students because of what they've written on social media, and ramping up checks of people entering the UK to check they haven't posted anything on Facebook that you don't like, doesn't amount to any sort of attack on free speech.
That's really twisting things without the specific examples. You're giving... You're giving examples the same way I gave the example of the 82-year-old man.
But you didn't give any examples, and I've just given you 10.
No, you've just given me a very biased perspective.
Bias is facts. All of those things have happened. Which of those haven't happened? Have journalists been banned from the White House under the Trump administration?
Have journalists been banned, or have they brought in alternative media that presents a different
I'm not talking about
angle.
Have journalists from organisations like the Associated Press been banned by the White House? Yes or no?
Yes, they have.
Right. Have judges been threatened with
But
impeachment
wait a minute.
because the White House doesn't like their rulings?
Wait
Yes
a
or
minute.
no?
Let's not do it that way. Let's go back to that. And
yes.
why were they? Why were they banned?
But so we accept, right, are we accepting that all the things I just suggested have happened?
If you don't let me finish, then we can't really have a conversation here because you've got a very biased perspective
I'm not
here,
biased at all.
very angle.
I'm giving you facts, and I'm just asking whether you recognise that those things are true.
You know what? It's so interesting. Did we not have a bunch of fake news here? And in the U.S., we did. And why? Why did we have fake news? Because it was biased and it was wrong. And so that is one of the reasons. You know, you're listing 10 things and cutting me off. But then why was the Associated Press no longer welcome? Because they gave fake news that has been proven.
But Jenny, you coming on the national radio station here on LBC and saying an 82-year-old man being arrested is an attack on free speech without having a clue what he's actually said is not fake news at all.
It's not. It's not that I haven't had a clue. I can't remember the specifics.
Right.
But the fact that.
But how can you know it's an attack on free speech if you can't remember what he'd actually said?
Well, you know, it's very interesting because you started this off by saying J.D. Vance had a dig. And so we don't get to have an intelligent discussion about whether there really is censorship going on, if people are afraid to speak out.
But he has had a dig, and that's his own language. He said previously when he talked about the UK...
No, you called it a dig.
Well,
This clip perfectly shows why, when people on the far right start shouting about free speech being under attack, you should always ask them for details, because their claims often fall apart fast. Take Dr. Jan Halper-Hayes, a former Trump advisor, academic, and self-proclaimed defender of free speech. She goes on a national UK radio show, ready with what she thinks is a powerful example. An 82-year-old man arrested over a Facebook post. Sounds shocking, right? Like a real threat to democracy. But then the host asks the obvious question, what exactly did he post? And that's when the cracks show. Her answer? She doesn't know. She can't remember. She's on air using this story as her main proof of censorship in the UK, yet she has no idea what was actually said. Think about that. She's accusing a whole country of silencing its people, but can't provide the key fact. That's not proof. That's just gossip turned into a political weapon. The host, still polite, asks again, and gets nothing. If you don't even know what the post said, how can you claim it's censorship? Her answer, in simple terms, was, well, I picked the wrong example. And just like that, whatever credibility she had vanished. Her argument collapsed. She admitted she had nothing. This wasn't some clever gotcha moment. It was basic fact-checking. But she came into the conversation expecting zero pushback, and the second she got any, she froze. The almost comical part? This isn't the first time I've seen her crumble like this. Twice now, she's shown up with big, bold claims, only to fold the moment someone asks her to back them up. For someone with a doctor title and political advisory experience, you'd think she'd have some answers. But when the questions start, they're nowhere to be found. The host then asks a straightforward question. If the UK is so oppressive, can you name one thing you can't say here without risking arrest? Anyone making that claim should be ready with examples. She had none. Not one banned phrase. All she could offer was a vague feeling that political correctness had gone too far. And that's really the core of it, the right's discomfort with having their offensive or harmful views challenged, which they disguise as censorship. In reality, UK speech laws are clear. Say whatever you want unless it's hate speech or a direct call to violence. People can criticize the government, debate policies, organize protests, freedoms that, ironically, are more under threat in today's US under Trump's influence. The host made that point clear. And honestly, if free speech is in danger anywhere right now, it's not the UK. It's America. More than the UK, in fact. Just look at Trump's track record, banning White House reporters he didn't like, calling for judges to be impeached over rulings he disliked, firing government staff for simply doing their jobs, cutting funding to universities over their speech policies, pressuring law firms to side with MAGA politics, slashing money for media outlets that criticized him, urging police to arrest protesters, and even suggesting ideological tests for immigrants. Jan Halper-Hayes backed Trump while all this was happening. The host lays out 10 clear examples and asks her if these things actually took place. Instead of having an open, honest conversation, she falls back on the tired fake news defense. the go-to shield against uncomfortable facts. She nitpicks one example, tries to spin it for a second take, then slowly admits that yes, these events happened, but insists they don't matter, because she says so. And that's where the hypocrisy hits hardest. She shouts about censorship in the UK without providing even one real case. Yet when presented with documented examples of an American president, specifically Trump, using government power to silence critics and limit speech, she brushes it off or defends it. That's not a fight for free speech, that's blind loyalty. The political correctness scare is just a distraction, smoke and mirrors to protect her side while attacking the other. Nobody's being thrown in jail for criticizing government policies, but when speech crosses into harassment, hate speech, or serious threats, there are consequences. That's not censorship, that's accountability. And accountability is what the far right truly can't stand. It's not that their voices are being silenced, it's that their words are being held to a standard. The irony is that her entire performance ends up proving the opposite of what she intended. If the UK were really the oppressive, speech-crushing place she describes, she wouldn't be sitting there, live on air, openly criticizing its government, and walking away without a single legal repercussion. The fact that she can do this and be challenged in real time is proof that free speech in Britain is alive and well. Yet there she is, fumbling over vague, half-remembered talking points, with no real evidence to back them up. As each claim falls apart, her frustration grows, and she's left clinging to tone and deflection rather than facts. From a communication perspective, it's a textbook example of what happens when someone leans on catchy slogans instead of substance. Free speech under siege sounds dramatic, until you're asked, all right, show us the proof. And here, the answer is clear. It's not proof, it's fiction. 2 times in a row now. That's what makes this clip land so hard. It's not just that she lost a debate, it's that she walked into the studio certain she was about to expose a major free speech crisis, and walked out having proven, live on air, that she couldn't back up her own claims. For viewers, that's a win that goes beyond the host. It's a perfect example of how these free speech panic stories crumble when met with basic, calm questioning. So the next time voices in the US, especially from Trump's GOP wing, warn about some imagined free speech meltdown in Britain, remember this. Remember how the loudest voices often bring the least evidence. And keep in mind that when those same people cheer on leaders who silence the press, punish critics, and suppress opposition, their sudden passion for free speech couldn't ring more hollow.